Hi, John.
Okay. Hi there.
You wanted to sit down after the events of Real Housewives of Orange County Season 18 unfolded. Why was this important for you to do?
There was so much out there that was inaccurate, and the final reunion scene kind of capped that off, and that made my decision that I have to talk and just set the record straight.
You said you hit him. Yeah, I've heard that he says I punched him, but I don't remember everything. I don't know what I did that night. Everyone's saying that I punched him.
This interview has zero intent of bashing Shannon. I absolutely don't want to. I simply want to tell the truth. And part of telling the truth is not going to sound good for Shannon, but that's just a byproduct of me telling the truth.
What are you hoping the viewers take away from our conversation?
Well, let me first say that I'm not delusional. I know that the fan base is very much in Shannon's camp. They're very much against me. They're very much against Alexis. But my silence has contributed to that over the last 5 years. I basically haven't done any interviews. People may think I have. I answered a couple questions in one. I've done some red carpets here and there where it's a soundbite, but you are the one and only person that I'm actually sitting down and talking to. I don't think I'm gonna change a bunch of minds. I think it's so cemented in their minds who they think I am, but I'm doing this for me and for setting the record straight for truth. So I'm speaking to that portion of the audience that wants to hear the truth and wants to be reasonable to me, and then once I talk, I'm done.
What about that half of the audience that's like, we never want to see this man again?
I know that. I'm fully aware of that. I think that they will tune me out, and no matter what I say, it's not going to change their mind, and that's okay. But once people hear me speak and then they want to hate me knowing the truth, so be it. I'm going to go on with my great life, because I really do have a fantastic life. It's sort of Twilight Zone. I have this thing over here where a bunch of people hate me. People think that I am a broke loser who was living off of Shannon. And I'm a successful business owner of multiple businesses. I built those businesses while raising 3 kids by myself and have lived a very active, wonderful life. I've never taken a dime from Shannon and never needed to. It's a very different story than what people think.
There has been this conversation around you that he says he doesn't want to be famous. He doesn't want the spotlight. Doing an interview seems counterintuitive to that. So set the record straight for me there.
It's been said over and over, he's such a private person that I claimed that I was this private person. That's not really true. I have never sought to be famous or sought to be in front of the public eye, and if I was going to, I certainly wouldn't be as being a boyfriend on a housewife show. That's not a way to get a positive, legitimate shot at fame. What people don't know is that when this first started, this is 5 years ago now, and Shannon wanted me to film with her. I did my homework, I met with producers and so forth, asked a lot of questions, and came to the conclusion that I didn't want to. Shannon then received her contract, and I was a condition of bringing her back on the show that year. And then that repeated itself in the second year I filmed and the third year I filmed. So I was put in this kind of no-win situation where I either film or the person I care about, risks not having a job. Having said that, I don't mind being interviewed. I don't mind being in the plug. I'm not that private. I'm actually more of an open book with most people. So that's not really even true.
I don't owe him money.
Is he suing you?
Yeah, $75,000. I already countered. I offered him not half.
I said, Johnny, let's just settle. And he's like, no.
John didn't accept my offer.
The through line for this season we just watched really was this legal battle between you and Shannon, which is now over. I believe she has paid you $60,000.
Correct.
How do you feel about where that all landed and netted out?
That's a big subject. There was talk on the reunion about me doing forensic accounting, and then there's been a lot of fan criticism for that. So I need to start there, because you can't understand the lawsuit unless you understand that part.
Why was forensic accounting something you even needed to get into, and what you were hoping to / what you did get out of doing that?
The statement that Shannon made repeatedly over the last 5 years that she paid for everything, that started 5 years ago in the beginning portion of our relationship. And It's so not true. I kind of got to the point where enough's enough, and I just wanted to put it to bed once and for all. Paid a forensic accountant to go through my calendar, every single credit card statement, and all my bank statements, and came up with what did I actually, and I didn't know the number. I knew it was a lot, but I didn't know the number. And it ended up being $50,000 in the first year when we were just starting to date. And by the end of the 3.5 years plus the 6 months of friendship, so call it 4 years, it was $380,000 that I spent on Shannon and my relationship. Now, getting to the loans, in addition to the $380,000 in her 2 times of need. One where it was told to me that it was just a cash flow issue and that she would pay me back in 2 months. She needed money for her facelift. I wired her $40,000 and then a promissory note shortly thereafter. She got irate at the promissory note and sent me a long email stating how much money she made and how, of course, she would pay me back and that this was a loan between a boyfriend and girlfriend. So Shannon knows it was a loan, has never made any attempts to pay it back. Then after we were broken up, she again was having cash flow problems and couldn't pay her bills. And she was crying to me on the phone, and I said, look, Shannon, I'm gonna help you. This is an exact quote. I said, Shannon, you know how volatile our relationship is. And I said, even if you come to hate me, you need to pay me back. And she cried and said, of course I will, John. And she didn't do that.
There was a lot of conversation around the timing of you sending the letter and then moving forward with a lawsuit, that it timed out to when cameras were back up on the show. Why was that when you did it instead of when the relationship had ended?
Great question. And again, it's not lost on me how that looks. But the reality of the matter was it was coming up on the statute of limitations where I couldn't do anything legally. And believe me, I tried to not do anything legally. I reached out to the CFO multiple times, who handles 100% of her finances and who I know well, saying, we got to get this documented. I know Shannon can't pay me back right now. I started off saying, let's just get it on paper. And if she starts paying me a year from now, I'm good with that.
So you had tried to resolve it before
without any
it.
attorneys, without anything. I said, let's just document this. You know, it needs to be put down on paper and some sort of a plan that's reasonable. Look, I'm not trying to be hard on her. I just want a plan that works for her. So I started off that way. And then nothing. Then I had my attorney just send her, again, a friendly letter, not threatening to sue or anything, just saying, hey, let's work this out. And didn't work, and nothing was happening. And then it's 2 days before the statute of limitations, and I'm like, all right, pull the trigger. Like, it's the last thing I wanted to do.
On that same conversation, there was much talk around People magazine seemingly learning of this either at the exact same time Shannon did or before Shannon even knew.
It was public record, and then they reached out.
Shannon claims she offered payment in full, but with the contingency that you both sign a mutual non-disparagement clause, which you did not want to sign. But my understanding of that is if she had also signed that, then she could not have spoken about this at all on the season. So why not take that first offer?
Here's the problem with that. I know that confuses people, but the problem with the signing a non-disparagement agreement was it put a legal muzzle on me, so I couldn't, because I hadn't spoken, I hadn't defended myself, so I wouldn't be able to correct the record of all the past disparagement that has taken place. So I just said, look, I want a straight financial deal, just pay me back the money that you owe me, and with no strings attached. She had already disparaged me for so long and so badly, and there's a lot of it, I mean, that I won't disclose. I will say that it caused serious damages to me and one of the companies I own. Serious damage. And there was more than that. There was serious damage to one of my children. It was bad. Basically, I'm having to shield my name from those companies because we don't want the negative attention. My children are getting calls, you know, and them threatening and citing my home address and...
Like just from random fans and people, or?
Who knows, but it's happening a lot.
We've spoken a lot about the lie of Shannon paid for everything. I think by the time we got to the end of the season, she had kind of walked that back to, I paid for a lot in the beginning of the relationship, and I think her number for that first year was somewhere in the 60s.
First of all, she said she paid for everything. Then she went to the first 2 years. Then she went to the first year. So the story does change constantly, and her $60,000 number, which she said was in the first 6 months of the relationship, and it included like a couple trips to New York. We went to New York several times. In the beginning, I was naive, didn't know any better. I thought that Bravo's paying for the hotel room, Bravo's paying for the plane flights. Naively, I thought, wow, Bravo really treats these people nice. She paid for these things, and then behind my back started telling people how, oh my gosh, I'm having to pay for everything.
But you were unaware.
I was unaware. As soon as I became aware of it, I offered to reimburse, which she did not accept.
When did that click into focus for you?
That was after the second trip to New York. Once I was aware of it, I started paying the difference of what Bravo paid and for my own plane ticket. And I always paid, even from the first trip. Everything we did in New York, I paid for. So I thought, I'm leaving my companies, going there to support her. I'm paying for everything we do. I think I'm being really generous. And meanwhile, she's off telling people that she's concerned because she pays for everything.
I was trying to rack my brain for all the negative things maybe she has said about you over the years, because we did hear a lot this season, the lies, the lies, the lies. What I could come up with was she paid for a lot in the beginning of the relationship, that you would ghost her after intense fights, and that there's a suggestion, I think this came from the other women and not from her directly, that you sometimes spoke ill of her in the aftermath of those fights. Is there more to that list or anything you want to say to those?
There is, but I don't want to add them into the public narrative. I don't. The fat shaming, that one really bothered me because I actually, the opposite was true. I literally would try and make her feel beautiful with my words on almost a daily basis. I literally, on my children's life, never, not one time, said any disparaging comment to her about her looks or anything else. I did not. And Shannon knows that, and she actually did try to correct that one briefly on one of the reunions. It's not a surprise to anybody that the relationship was volatile, it was somewhat toxic, and I had to create boundaries for myself. So when things would get to a certain point, I needed to step away, let her, cool off or whatever, and talk about it later. It was a matter of me setting boundaries. And it definitely had to do with alcohol.
You have both called the other, at this point, a monster. That begs the question, though, why would you stay in a relationship with someone for 4, 5 years if you view them as a monster? My comment on that had to do with her behavior the night of the DUI. Other than that, I did not call her a monster. I did love Shannon. I did care about her a lot, and it was very difficult for me to step away, even though I knew for a long time that ultimately I would have to. The timeline of your relationship was called into question at the reunion. I was single for a year before we met.
Although other people have other things to say, but we know the truth.
Wait,
Neither one of us were looking. We weren't. I wasn't looking.
John was texting me. He loved me. Two months before he met you.
So clear that timeline up for me.
We broke up the day after Thanksgiving in 2022. We didn't talk or really see each other for 6 months. She was dating someone else. I was dating someone else. Then she asked to meet me for dinner, and I said sure. I was always willing to be friends. I didn't want it to be an ugly parting of ways, so I said sure. We went to dinner. I was expecting her to confront me on something, and she didn't. And we had a nice time, and so we started a friendship and started hanging out. It inevitably, you fall into some old patterns. And the old patterns of the relationship kind of came back, but we never got back together. We both publicly and privately in our own conversations acknowledged that we are not together. We are free to date others, but some of it looked like we were together, no doubt.
So fall 2023, you meet Alexis. She is already in conversation to go back to the show by that point. And she's spoken at length about waffling, going back and forth, trying to make this decision. She ultimately chose to go back. Did you expect it to go the way it did?
Of course not. We expected her to be somewhat of a villain, just not the extreme that it went to. I didn't want her to do the show. I mean, I'll address anyways the question of, oh, I'm a housewife chaser. It's like the last thing in the world I was looking for after Shannon was another housewife. I mean, that was literally the last thing. It was completely organic the way we met, and we both knew how it would look and tried our hardest to remain friends, but there was just too much chemistry, too much magnetism, and we fell in love pretty quick. I knew, based on my experience, that it was going to be a very difficult season. I told her I didn't want her to do it, but I wanted her to make up her own mind, and she did, and once she did, I said, I'm going to support you 100%.
It is clear that she loves you, cares about you deeply, and is your defender almost to a fault. Is there anything you wish she had done differently over the course of the season?
Of course, but coming back as a friend was, in hindsight, a mistake, because you're very limited on what is shown. The way the storyline played out, there was so much left out that a lot of what she looks like on TV is not Alexis, and she did not come on there to destroy Shannon the way people think she did. She wanted to clear up some lies. She loved me and knew I was hurt by a lot of what's happened and the way people think of me, and she wanted to clear those things up, but it wasn't her coming on and trying to harm Shannon.
A commentary I've seen a lot online is, if he's done this to Shannon, what's gonna stop him from treating Alexis the same way should this go south? Do you have any message for that camp of people?
For years, it's like, what John has done to Shannon. What have I done? Other than recognizing it was a toxic relationship and doing us both the favor of ending the relationship, what have I done?
I think it's the escalation of things into illegal territory.
Who's the bad guy in that? The person who knew they were loans, took the money in the time of need, promising to pay them back, and then lying to everybody saying they were gifts while she continued to say that she paid for everything. Of course that makes me look bad. So am I the bad guy for just wanting to correct the record and have her pay me the money back that she knew she borrowed? I don't know. It's confusing that I'm the bad guy. And what have I done to Shannon? When I was in the relationship, I was in it. I was supportive. I was forgiving. I was there for her. I really lost a lot of myself in that relationship. I became part of Shannon's world. Shannon did not become part of my world. There was a lot of loss for me in that. And I was there. I was faithfully there for her, that whole relationship. And I get a little confused when people say, oh, he's going to do to Alexis what he did to her. Not sure what I did to Shannon.
Wait, what is it that Shannon did?
Those like ring footage cameras of her almost running over his daughter.
It is my intent for no one to ever see them.
Why keep them?
It was a extremely traumatic night for me. The one person I would show the video footage
With me
to
in the room?
would be Shannon Beador, if she wants to see what she was actually like that night and what kind of behavior she exhibited.
The Ring camera videos. If you had no intention of those ever existing anywhere, being used for anything, why hold on to them? Why even discuss them?
I mean, it wasn't like I sat down and had some plan that, oh, okay, I'm going to put these in a safe over here.
And you weren't secretly recording her. It's your Ring camera.
No, it's just cameras that exist in my house. They're just there for security and for deterrent. That's why they were there. It's one of the most terrifying and traumatic nights of my life. I never wanted for some false narrative to come out there. So I always kind of knew, oh, the footage is there. So it was kind of just in case I ever had to defend myself.
But no intention of blackmail
that's so ridiculous. You know, Emily perpetuated that false narrative, and Alexis did make a mistake of bringing them up, and she regrets it, but not once did it ever come out of my mouth that I would ever show them to anyone. I wouldn't do that to Shannon's daughters. I wouldn't.
I do think she exists in a little bit of fear that these will surface one day.
You know what? Shannon knows my character, and when she heard that I said I would never, it's funny, she dropped that non-disparagement, and there was conditions in the lawsuit that she was wanting to have me put in writing I would never show them. It's funny those went away. You know why? Because she knows my character. She knows that I wouldn't do that.
So in the settlement, there was no non-disparagement and all the things that she was seeking.
It was a straight financial deal at the end. And, people say it wasn't about money. It kind of wasn't about money. It was more about, you've harmed me for 5 years and you borrowed money and now you're telling people that they're gifts. So, okay, I want my money back.
The night of the accident, a big topic of discussion in the final part of the reunion. For the first time ever, they picked up cameras to film a post-reunion scene with a lot of the women, discussing something you supposedly said the night the original finale filmed, where you claimed that you did hear the accident take place and your daughter told you not to go out there. Is that the truth?
Yes, it's the truth, but it can't be said just like that. This is the hard part of this interview because I literally never wanted to tell this story. I wanted this story to die. And it's really sad that that got brought up on the show because that kind of now forces my hand to have to explain, because the way it's left right now, there's too many negative implications on me, and anybody who knows the whole truth of that night would not think I did anything wrong.
So fill in the blanks that you're comfortable filling in for me, because the way it is presented to the audience is he chose not to be there for her in her time of need. Shannon brought up one point this season, she got a text message the day after that made it seem like you didn't even have an idea the accident had happened.
First of all, Shannon and I weren't together that night. I had been in Catalina on my boat with friends. I got home at about 11. Shannon was in my home at 11, uninvited. We hadn't talked. I didn't expect to see her there. The level of intoxication was shocking. And she immediately, her issue was she had lost her phone. So I'm always there to help Shannon with her issues. And I guess it had been left in an Uber. The Uber driver nicely took it back, so it was somewhere in the vicinity of the home she was staying at, which was 150 yards from my home. I left that, I said, Shannon, I'll get it. And so I left the house, went over, searched around, and ended up finding the phone. Because of the state she was in, the last thing I wanted was for her to try to stay at my home. So I leaned the phone up against her front door so there's no way she could miss it, and went back to my house. And she's like, where's the phone? And I told her exactly, found it, leaned it up right against your door, it's there for you, hoping she would walk home. This is where the story gets bad. She went into extreme rage because I hadn't brought the phone back to her. It's like she was possessed, and she continued to physically attack me for probably the next minute. And I'm backing away the whole time. I end up in my bedroom, which my windows face the driveway, and my 2 adult daughters, they pull up from a 1,000-mile drive to pick up one of my daughter's dogs. So I say, Shannon, stop. My daughters are here. This is over. You need to leave. You need to leave. And I left the room, went outside to fill my daughters in on what was taking place. I've got scratches on me, and I'm pretty upset. Shannon then comes out of the house screaming at the top of her lungs, starts threatening my daughters. Lights are going on around the neighborhood, so it's drawing the attention. She comes out and she brings Archie. Archie was also staying with me, and Archie is now out running around the street, so that's causing a scene. And finally, she gets Archie. She comes over to try and get in her car. I stand in front of her to stop her from getting in her car. And I finally said, Shannon, you're a drunk idiot and you're making a big mistake. And she gets in her car. She floors it in reverse out of my driveway, comes within inches of hitting one of my daughters. And it's seemingly the entire audience has blown that off as a nothing. And I would challenge anybody listening to this interview to, if a drunk fool came within inches of hitting your child, would it be no big deal?
Do you wish you had done something differently to get her to not get in the car that night?
Shy of physically restraining her, I'm not sure what I was supposed to do. I basically gave up because I'm not going to touch her in any way and then have somehow accusations made against me for something else. So she reverses out, almost hits my daughter, and then races around the corner, and we hear the crash. My instinct was to start running to the crash. I did so. Both of my daughters stopped me and said, "Dad, you can't go anywhere near her. We'll go." So I say, "Okay, you go, check it out." So did I not go check out the accident? That's not true. My daughters went seconds after Shannon was pulling away. So my assumption was she hit a little planter, okay? That was noisy, but she's obviously, okay. She's pulled away. The next thing was I saw police lights outside my house shining through my window, and police officers knocking on my door. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? It sent shivers up my spine, what might have happened. And I answered the door. It was an officer with Archie. So I said, yeah, I'll take him. I love that dog. It was at that point in my mind I knew she was arrested. Hadn't been told, but obviously I knew. I sent her a text at that point asking what the heck is going on. Nothing. I then called the hospital and got to a nurse who said, yes, she's here. She has been injured, but she's okay. And I said, can I come see her? They said, no, you cannot. You will not be allowed to see her. She's under arrest, so do not come. After that, I was on the phone off and on the entire night, zero sleep with her daughter. And the next morning, I was at the police station waiting for her to be released from jail. Now keep in mind what happened the night before, but I put aside my sadness, anger, frustration of being terrorized that night and my daughters being terrorized that night. But I put all that aside to be there for her. So I was waiting there when she finally came out of jail. She was a mess. I took her home. I helped her get undressed. I bathed her. I fed her. I did her grocery shopping. I took her laundry to the cleaners. I took her to her doctor appointments. I cared for her for the next 10 days. Is that a guy who didn't care?
And then the 10 days go by, she enters this treatment. Is that kind of when things
It was at the end of the 10 days, I took her to Vicki Gumbelson's home because the paparazzi were nonstop outside of my home and the home she was staying at. And it was just getting unbearable. Vicki was kind and took care of her. Another thing I cannot bring up, but one of the things that happened with one of my children happened, and it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. And I made a phone call to Shannon saying, I'm sorry, but I can't be friends with you. I need to completely divorce myself from your world and your life.
You are moving into, hopefully, a happier chapter.
Oh my
now.
God, yes.
You are engaged. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. This is the great part of my life. I've literally never been happier. I mean, Lex and I were so meant for each other. We are never apart. Zero hiccups. It was meant to be.
As Alexis shared your love story over the course of the season, Shannon often chimed in and said, well, he said the same thing to me.
That's so bitter and not true. There is a gigantic difference between my relationship with Alexis and my relationship with Shannon. I never proposed to Shannon, and I was with her in either a girlfriend or friend relationship for 4 years. I did not propose to her. Alexis is the real deal for me, and I will be with her forever.
Is a wedding date set?
It is.
Would you televise that wedding?
No.
I expected that answer. If Alexis returns to the show, how will you feel about that?
I will do what I've always done. I'll be supportive of Alexis if that's something that she wanted to do.
Any final words, anything you feel like you didn't get off your chest? Any final message to Shannon to share here?
I hope Shannon is truly getting the help that she needs. It is hugely disappointing to me that after hearing that she almost hit my daughter, that she has not reached out to say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. There has been zero, as a matter of fact, her reaction was anger when she heard that.
She doesn't really remember the night at all.
But that is a pattern that's not acceptable. I truly hope the best for her. I hope that she does get in a place where those kinds of things don't happen and that she can truly find love and happiness. I do want that. I don't wish her ill will. This entire interview was to tell the truth. I have not been heard in 5 years. This is the only time I've been heard. And then to the fan base, I would just say that if you still want to hate me, that's fine. I'm going to go along with my great life. If you're going to hate me based off of lies and things that are inaccurate, that's on you.